Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with me. For those who do not know me yet, my name is Ron Levine from Mindfulness and Blue Jeans, and I've been practicing mindfulness and insight meditation for 25 years. And I started during a time when I was dealing with clinical anxiety and depression and panic disorder. And my panic disorder had blown up into agoraphobia. So I was unable to leave the house. I was on disability from work. And I happened to get paired up with a psychologist who, even back in the late 90s, was several decades deep into practicing and teaching mindfulness and insight meditation. And that was my beginning on this journey. I didn't think it would lead anywhere. And I was wrong. Very happy to have been wrong about that. And 25 years in, I still continue to be wrong about that. So I'm still here doing it. And here I am. Here you are. Thank you for being with me. This is the next in our ongoing series of Calming Anxiety by Living Mindfully, where I share some of the tips and techniques that I've come up with for myself, ones that other people have shared with me over the years, as we all try to help each other out a little bit with one of these quirks of the human condition: anxiety, angst. All right. So I'm looking forward to jumping into today's edition. So let's go ahead. I always like to begin my sitting by imagining I'm suspended from the ceiling by a piece of string attached to the top of my head, as a nice cue to sit up straight without adding any extra tension to do so. If there's some tension here, we can allow it to be tension. Tension is allowed. The trap we often fall into is thinking that we shouldn't be experiencing any tension, so we try to get rid of tension that's here. And when we try to get rid of tension that's here by force, well, we're bringing more tension to it in an attempt to get rid of it, right? So how are we going to get rid of tension? By bringing more tension to the tension that's already here. Now, that doesn't make sense. So if there's some tension here, we can simply notice that there's some tension here. That's enough. I also like to notice what is beneath me, what is holding me up. A cushion, chair, floor. Something is supporting me, and I can allow it to do so. I can allow this support at the bottom. I can allow the suspension from the ceiling at the top. I can allow whatever is happening in between the two. Let's take a moment to notice whatever that is, however it is, right now. And if you haven't already, you may begin to bring your attention to your breathing. You may notice if your breathing changes as you bring your attention to it. In this practice, we can shape and control the breathing. We do not have to. The same way we can notice whatever is supporting us. We can notice the suspension from the ceiling. We can notice whatever tension may or may not be here. We can notice the breathing, however it is. Our meditative breath is simply the breath we have here while we're meditating. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we worked with breathing with and paying attention to the experience of any stress and tension we might be holding above the neckline, on top of the head, the temples, around the ears, around the eyes. And then last week we followed up by sending breath energy and the attention to our conception of the mind, softening around the edges of the mind. I'd like to follow that up with one more suggestion today. Sometimes I find it helpful to envision that I'm sending the breath energy even beyond what I think of as being me, my body, say. So rather than just sending the attention to, say, the crown of the head, the area where we generally think our mind is located, what if we send it outward just a little higher, into the space just above the head? Because sometimes, even though we're sending the breath energy in certain places, without necessarily having the agenda of trying to control how that will feel. There's usually still this little part of us that is, trying to control how it'll feel. Checking it out. Oh, how's it feel now? How's it feel now? And there is a place for that in this practice. That's not a bad thing. But I have found value in not doing that sometimes. And when I send the breath energy outward, something just beyond my conception of the body, well, there's an acknowledgement there that I can't directly feel that. I can't control that. So it kind of takes that whole aspect of attempting to control off the table. I'm just sending the breath energy there, and it is however it is. I don't have to do anything about it. I can just share it. Sometimes I will envision the breath energy coming up from the ground, or from whatever is supporting us, as I was talking about before. I'm simply a vessel for breath energy that is coming up from that bottom that is supporting us, and then going out through the top. And again, I'm not here to control it or shape it. I'm just acting as a passageway. I can see how it feels to just be a passageway. I don't have to do anything. Body knows how to breathe on its own. I can just watch this energy move. We might notice that there are any parts of this passageway that we are. that seem blocked at all. Perhaps the energy is not moving quite as freely. Again, we don't have to try to do anything about that other than bring some attention to it. See what it feels like. See how the breathing is working its way around it. Perhaps working its way through it. Simply seeing what happens when we watch that area. Not trying to change it. We don't get rid of a blockage by pushing on it. It just gets more stuck in my experience. It loosens from within. Like water wearing down rock over centuries. It doesn't push the rock. It wears it away through what you might consider to be a constant, consistent, persistent energy and attention. And you may find it uplifting or energizing to envision the breathing the way that I've been talking about. Sending it out through the top of the head into the area just beyond our body. Just beyond the top of the head. Drawing it up from the ground. Or you might find it more helpful to get a more grounded feeling by imagining the breath energy coming in from the top of the head, moving its way down and out into the earth, out into whatever is supporting you. You may even imagine the breathing coming in from one side of the body and out the other. Or in through the front and out through the back. The main point is that when we do send it outward, we're sending it just beyond the body. So that we're taking off the table that tendency to try to control how it feels so that it matches some way that we think it should feel. If we send it just past that boundary where we feel like we should have some control over how things feel, how does that change our experience? When we put that condition in place of sending it just past that spot where we think we should have control, where we feel like we need to have control, what's the effect of that? What do we find? What do we actually feel? When we've helped alleviate a little bit of that need to control how we feel. As you go through the rest of your day or evening, as things come up, internally, externally, perhaps this feeling of a need to control arises. Perhaps even a feeling of the need to control our need to control arises, right? We can catch that. Again, not in an attempt to control it, just to notice it, just to see it. And even if just for a moment, come to the breathing. Notice it come in from one area, just beyond our sphere of control. And let it go out the other. Again, just beyond the sphere of our control. Be the vessel. Be the passageway. Just to see what it's like. Just to see what happens. Just to see how we feel. When we are open to feeling. Thank you, everyone. I'll hang on for a few minutes if anyone would like to share any. Hey, Miriam. Glad this resonated for you. Yeah. Not controlling and fixing goes against everything in my being sometimes. Yes, your humanity is confirmed. Yeah, that resonates with me for sure. And that's why I tend to focus on this so much, is that was such a turning point for me in my early practice, and is still one of the central aspects of my practice. Is, okay, where am I trying to exert control? Where that's not only not skillful in the Buddhist sense of I'm causing myself stress and suffering, it's not even efficient from just a purely objective standpoint. Like, it's just not efficient. And does the intellectual knowledge that it's not efficient stop us from doing it? Well, no. We keep trying to do it because it's not coming from our intellect. It's coming from our emotion. It's usually being driven by what? Fear, right? So our emotional systems are older than our intellectual systems. So when our intellectual system says, well, this doesn't make any sense, and our emotional system says, well, we got to do it anyway because I'm scared, the emotional system wins. That's why we can't talk ourselves out of a feeling. You might also say that's why we don't talk ourselves into a feeling, right? Which is what we're talking about here, is trying to control how we feel. And if nothing else, that's exhausting. And ends up being what we feel is exhausted, right? So it backfires. It just doesn't work. So I've found it very helpful to open up. All right, what is here when I don't try to control what's here? And even if it's not necessarily pleasant, at least I'm not making it more unpleasant and exhausting myself, wasting all this energy trying to fight with it, right? It's just a relief. I'm just going to say, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to fight what's coming up. And I often say that we engage in this civil war with ourselves where we keep finding the fight that we're bringing. We go looking for a fight and we find it every time because we're fighting with ourselves. And funny thing, when we fight with ourselves, well, when we put our weapons down, so does the other side, because the other side's us. We think if we put our weapons down, we're going to get killed. No. When we're fighting ourselves, if you put your weapons down, so does the other side. It has to, right? It was a huge turning point in my practice. I have a whole story about that I don't have time to get into here, but for those of you who have heard my Newton Center story, you know that one, and maybe it'll come up in another one of these. A huge turning point in my practice. If you fight yourself, you've already lost. All right. Glad this resonated for so many of you. Great to see you all. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you again real soon. Cheers, everyone. Take care.